ma se resume el Ecuador.
Don't forget our gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed.
Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light!
Hi there, Pisces. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 14th through 20th. I hope you're feeling well. I hope your wonderful holiday season has been off to a wonderful start and that you're feeling great, taking good care of yourself, as well as your family and your friends and the others that we think about during the holiday season. The first card you've drawn this week is the Emperor. The Emperor card is a card that indicates a need either to be subject to an authority. You could be working with an authority figure. This could be a mediator. This could be a person involved with a level of authority, like in the legal system, where you wouldn't be in front of the judge, but you might be negotiating through somebody who is trained to mediate in a specific way. Also, if this is a way you're feeling, especially if you're a male, could be a very masculine female, that you're feeling that you do have some authority or control, and depending, of course, on what these cards tell us next and what the astrology says, would let us know whether or not you're right or wrong. You know, sometimes people feel like they're the ultimate authority in some way, and then somebody challenges that authority, or it's perceived to be a challenge, and difficulties come up because somebody's checking us and maybe we're not responding the way that the other person would hope that we would, because there could be an imbalance of power, and it could be inherent to the type of relationship, whether personal or relation to somebody at work that you work with, you collaborate with. It could even be between you and a child of yours, in example. And of course, if you have a parent who's living, they might try to exert this upon you. But it is a person trying to almost exert an authority over a person that the authority figure per se feels that they have room or the ability to hold this power or control over another. So you could see how this could be a kind of concept that could be almost interpreted to suit just about any situation. You can imagine that if you've got a check that the bank manager won't let the funds be released to you over, how you could be frustrated by this authority figure, where it's not a judge, but in the bank manager would be the last authority, and there would probably be no one else above that person, and you could be subject to that, or likewise you could be that person in the same capacity having that same issue. On Monday here, we've got the Sun in Sagittarius, which is your solar 10th house of career, fame, reputation, your chosen career or profession, the way that you exert your reputation and persona in the world. And this square is to Jupiter and Virgo, which is a solar 7th house of relationships and partnerships of all kinds. If this is a romantic relationship, then this would be the relationship that is your ultimate partnership. Whether you're legally married or not, this would be the person that fills that role if it's a romantic situation. So this would not be somebody that you're only recently dating, because that would be in the realm of the 5th house. This is a kind of relationship that could be a marriage or a partnership that is virtually the same. Likewise, this could be a business relationship, a business type partnership, or let's say you and your daughter have a floral business, and she would then take this spot, even if you are married, in the context of any discussions about that business or about the relationship with that person. And then, of course, if you have a relationship that is a marriage, then that would be the same house, but you would be reading the influences in a different context, you see. So with that square in mind, we have the issue that the challenge is integrating the way that you work in the world, or your issues with the way your partner is working through their career or chosen profession, or if you're retired, this would be the same energy, because even doing the volunteer work or putting your time into help people working in the Civil Air Patrol or in the Boy Scout or even at the YMCA, any other way that this energy is exerted, there is some issue with the partnership aspect of it. So, you know, you could see a person who, let's just say, is a stay-at-home mom, and she's with the kids, managing the home and everything, and then dad is at work all day, and he's out there in the world, and there is an imbalance in that one of you might feel the need to exert the influence of the emperor onto another, or that the issue of authority is actually the challenge. You know, you could imagine that if there's a woman at home who doesn't feel like she has any authority, and then she goes and exerts the control as soon as dad walks in the door, and she's complaining about every number of things without even saying, hi, how are you doing? There could be the issue of challenging the authority or feeling like the authority has been taken away from you. So even at times when we do subjugate ourselves to the authority of another, we may not realize where these issues of boundaries and partnerships and needs and wants of us versus the job, me at mine and yours at yours, and or the way that we're interacting, for some reason this is somehow tied together for you. The career and the marriage. Maybe both of you work at the same business, or both of you manage some kind of business, and so then there becomes a blurred line where you're not even out of each other's hair, you know, and so there isn't a moment of being kind of alone and doing your own thing before having to go home. And sometimes that can up the ante a little bit, because then each of the persons is naturally seeking some autonomy in some way, even if it's just to play some video games or to play solitaire or to Facebook or to scrapbook or do some activities with the family. You know, everybody has a different way of decompressing, and sometimes the challenge is integration, where integrating everybody's needs so that the whole family is healthy becomes somewhat difficult to define when the lines are blurred. Now, Mercury in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces, so Capricorn being your solar 11th house of friends and associations, associates, maybe the people you work with, maybe your spouses or significant others, work relationships or social relationships, or the bowling team or the gym team or the swim team, or whatever it is that is done, almost becomes a social extension of the job. And this is also a house that rules the income from the chosen career or profession. So there is the ability to mitigate some of these challenging situations by combining a level of healing throughout the adjustment process for whatever your challenge is. Neptune in Pisces, your solar first house, also being your ruler, is at the same time in somewhat of a healing through wounding kind of Chiron dance, because Chiron is in this solar first house as well. So you will notice this especially so if you know that your rising sign, your ascendant, is actually Pisces. If you don't know what your rising sign is so that you can watch the appropriate video, then you need to find a free natal chart calculator on the internet. Certainly there's one on my website, ritayanez.com. You just need to input your birth data, and you need an accurate time for this to be correct so that you know which constellation was rising on the eastern horizon at your birth. That will tell you the rising sign. So with that said, there is some healing that needs to come into play, and it has to do with who you are, who you project yourself to be into the world, the way that people see you. There needs to be kind of a harmony created where not you and not the other significant person in your life is an authority or challenging the other. Likewise, for those of you who are single and not at all interested in the romantic world and you're just doing your thing, it could be your service or servitude to your chosen profession, your career, your job. It could be even your volunteer work, your service to the community, working at a soup kitchen, or working with the elderly and the shut-ins, whatever you choose to do. There is a servitude here that whereby you are serving someone else. You also need to make sure that your needs are met. So you can go do your thing out there to help other people and using the energy of the 11th house. But don't forget that you need to take care of yourself as well, that you can't keep filling everyone else's glass if your pitcher is empty kind of energy. And the Emperor is where you might need to take up the reins of responsibility and to know that your personal happiness, in effect, is in your own hands, and no one else can make you happy, and nobody has permission to make you miserable. And for all of the above, you need to remember that you're the one who's in control of your life, but you don't need to worry about trying to control other people. They will do or not do, whatever it is that they need to do, and they are on their own path, of course, and we're only really truly in authority unto ourselves. On Tuesday, we've got the Eight of Cups in reverse, and this is kind of strange because we could have the element of you feeling like you made peace with the situation and you want to walk away from it. Somehow you get reeled back in. You come back to a situation that you've made some peace with and you've walked away from it. Or you think you're going to do something and then again some issue stops you, and maybe you don't know how to proceed to end a difficult relationship or to make a change in a difficult partnership. And it could even be that professional relationship. And it could be maybe an issue of dependency on some substance, which we can talk about as well. On Tuesday, we have the energy of Venus and Scorpio sextiling Pluto in Capricorn. Actually, that comes up on Thursday, pardon me. So we're needing to keep in mind that Mars in Libra, which is your solar 8th house of taxes, transformation, the sexual relationship as it relates to the product of the marriage, the joint assets, the community assets, abject authority at times, when it's imposed upon us, like through the Internal Revenue Service, or some taxation issues. And there are lots of other issues here that the 8th house can really take into account. So the most important thing is to know, where is it that you're feeling that you might resist or go up against some status quo or some power that is, whether it is perceived or real, that you might need to back it down a little bit, because this opposition includes Uranus and Aries, which is your solar 2nd house of your income, your possessions, the way that you value them, whether or not they are valuable to you or that you identify or over-identify with them, i.e. if you can't really feel good about yourself unless you're driving a Mercedes-Benz. I'm just picking on that these days because most people know that that's, it's not just that it's a status symbol for a lot of people. Some people really just prefer those vehicles. But I use it because a lot of people know that once they've got that emblem, they feel good about themselves. And so this could be where there is the catch-22 of needing to protect the community assets or the product of your marriage and or divorce, because that's what shows up in the 8th house as well. And, of course, in a divorce, if you're having difficulty with some kind of asset or debt division, there could be a 2nd house issue that kind of springs up. And it's like, well, wait a second, though. I've been supporting you. I've got one client who's got an issue, for example, and her ex has been supporting her a certain way. And I didn't realize it at the time. And while I'm counseling this issue, trying to help this person through, I realized that this support actually has been something that wasn't even an obligation. It was a good idea, I think a good move logistically in court. And she's concerned about where this money will go or how this division will be affected by what personal situation. And in the end, really what's important is to release any of the expectations that have to do with this and just help get this thing done by maybe holding up a quid pro quo, like, this is what you want, then you need to help me get this damn thing over with, and we just need to get it done. And so having to get things to move along in court will also require people to release their hold on a situation once you've taken it as far as you can. Let's just say you don't know if a person's hiding assets, or you're sure they are, or there's some ulterior motive. At some point it doesn't matter, because the judge is going to say, okay, so 5 o'clock today, you guys are divorced, and don't make me set the rules or the standards. And so this is the kind of energy of an 8 of Cups in reverse, which is where a person needs to release something and walk away from it for good and make it be done. Just get it over with. And there's almost like a return to the same argument, which is by now a moot point. So if you do have that issue, it could come surprisingly intertwined with some discussion about finances and property, which could be asset division, it could be debt division, because it's related to the 8th house as well. So for those of you that are going through a divorce actively, or you're actually trying to negotiate how this is going to happen, like somebody just needs to come in and say, so y'all are not getting along, is what it looks like. And it seems like you really need a divorce and you guys are keep going back and forth, and you need to just kind of cut the ties and get this done and just make it happen. And with this 8 of Cups in reverse in your reading, I want to make sure that you're not somehow feeling over obligated to keep fighting or challenging the thing that just needs to be healed by releasing it and allowing it to move forward. If you've got little kids, sooner or later, visitation occurs. If you've tried to do everything to control the situation for everybody's safety, there comes a point when there's not a whole lot you can do. And if situations become complex or unsafe, that will become obvious at some point anyway. And so sometimes walking away from your own situation, your own eighth house issue, when Mars is stimulated in this way, really is much more pronounced, because we've got the nodes in the Pisces Virgo axis now. So the north node and in Virgo and the south node in Pisces is really saying you need to work together to solve this issue. Whatever the most complex issue is for you personally, work together. Even if it's with the frenemy, the enemy, out in the open, whatever it is, you just need to work together to get this part of it done so that you can finally release this and walk away from your Eight of Cups more able to move forward, becoming the person that you are going to be, whoever you choose to be, whatever you define your experience to be as a single individual. For those of you that are able to try to repair this and you are actually working on correcting any issues in the relationship, there really does need to be a conversation about who are we separate, who are we together. We are not always joined at the hip. We also need time to ourselves. We may have common interests and a common bond, but we obviously need to do some things that are soothing to the soul. You might have a person who loves to read and somebody else who loves to party and play. And at some point, it needs to be recognized that you will go out to party and play to make the other partner happy when you do that together. And sometimes that partner will need to either spin their wheels or knit or read with you, but you might have to do some kind of negotiation in that way to make sure that everybody's needs are met. On Wednesday, we have the Five of Wands in reverse, and this is, of course, kind of alluding to the same message of no longer needing to fight this because it needs to just be resolved. So there's no sense in standing up, taking up arms, and bashing each other over the head with pool noodles unless it's something that you really feel you need to do to get it out of your system, right? That's an old therapeutic approach. We can just hurt each other with noodles until we're sick of just getting sweaty and pool noodled. And this could be that moment where you're coming to the realization, or somebody else, like perhaps this authority figure that the emperor could represent, and it might even be your father, somebody else's father, a father figure to you. And of course, if your father's deceased, it could very well be that your father comes to you in some kind of a dream state, or brings you a message, or gives you a sign like, sweetheart, it's okay to let go. So for those of you that are in this kind of contentious situation, it is okay to lay down your arms and just call it a truce. You don't even have to like this individual. You don't even have to say sorry. If really it just requires separating and moving away and de-escalating and mitigating and restructuring what this relationship is going to be, if anything, if there are minor children involved, then that's what needs to happen. Now, for those of you that don't have the relationship issue, if your marriage is fine, solid, everybody's happy, everybody respects each other, nobody's being disrespected, nobody cheats on each other, everything is fine and wholesome, then the issue really is about managing the community debt. And there could be a financial implication to this, because the whole of December you need to watch your finances. And Pisces, that's not always easy for you to do, because you love giving gifts, just probably more than receiving anything. You love to give people gifts, and that's okay. But it seems like there's an issue here that could turn into a need to rein it in, because you may find yourself in a bit of little bit of a financial constraint next year. And who wants to start off the year that way? Make good choices this year so that you don't have to get yourself involved in this. And it could be that your husband, most likely it would be the male, is saying, dude, we got to just rein this thing in, because we cannot end up maxing out credit cards. We just got them paid off. And so make sure that you keep that in mind. Five of Wands in reverse can also relate to kind of a creative difference that is now water under the bridge, and we just need to not talk about it anymore. And it could be that somebody's talking about the way that Aunt Flo got drunk last year at the Christmas shindig and everybody got redneck stupid and the cops were called. It might be time to just prevent those things from happening by not serving alcohol at your family functions, or not staying past your welcome if people start breaking out a case of beer. And oh Lord, if you only knew what kind of redneckery I'm subjected to at times. It's not in my family, it's because of where I am right now, but you would understand why I'm able to say these things very easily, that if everybody could just part ways and, toast to Martinelli sparkling cider, it might be a better place, because I have just seen some things out here, that have just been surprising to say the least. And it doesn't need to be that way. It's okay to visit family. And when here comes Uncle Joe with the trunk full of beer and you're like, oh, okay, so explosive diarrhea. Anybody who's going to feign the diarrhea this time? Okay, sweetheart, it's going to be the 8-year-old. Tonight you have diarrhea. You're going to bend over. Show me your acting skills. We got to get you out of here because you are just going to explode from the rear. And then you say, gosh, so sorry, we got to leave. And hopefully they don't listen to this show and don't have the ideas that I'm giving you. On Thursday, we've got the 3 of Cups upright, which is fantabulous. I know it looks a little odd because I know you're already studying the other cards, and great, good for you. My job is to teach anything that you might benefit from. So I know you noticed that, but let me tell you something. We have Venus in Scorpio, sextiling Pluto and Capricorn. So here in Scorpio, your 9th house of distant travels, distant relatives, your, I believe, in-laws are actually sitting in this house as well. This could be family get-togethers, of course. Obviously, there could be some celebration, and it could just be some lovely party together that, of course, before it gets weird or stupid or somebody says too many truths, that you got out of there successfully. And this is kind of the opportunity that you have with the 9th house, kind of sweetening these issues where you can kind of bridge the gaps. Or if you have been away from family for an extended period of time, you can actually create a harmonious experience because Pluto in Capricorn, your solar 11th house, is actually helping you work this out. We've got Mercury and Pluto conjunct, by the way, here soon. And this makes for an ability to kind of smooth things over. No need to dig it up. We're just going to make things better. Let's not talk about the last time that your mother-in-law insulted me and vice versa. We're not even going to go there. As soon as that starts, one of the kids has diarrhea. We're out of there. And then everybody is saved. Show up with a cake, leave without cake on the face, and everybody is good. So it will actually help you. Again, just keep in mind that Libra and Aries are opposing each other with Mars and Libra, which it really isn't happy to be there. And of course, Uranus and Aries, which could just make for some fantastic redneck type arguments. Or have you ever seen like the whole ghetto thing where people get down and they just start taking off their shoes, Jerry Springer style, and they're going to go to it? Well, talk about the 2nd house and the 8th house where, Aunt Mary over there is going to bring up all of the things she did for you, including paid off your bill collectors, put diapers on your baby, bought the formula when you couldn't breastfeed because you had a lump and you were hot and something happened, you had a fever, and then, she had to come over because you couldn't get up out of bed and you were depressed. And, then somebody's going to say, yeah, but you did it because you felt like it. We didn't even ask you to stay for 8 years. And whoa, that's when we pick up a chair and, security's got to get involved in everything. So keep that in mind. Also, when we go to Friday, we've got the Fool in reverse, and I know this looks weird. Don't worry about it because I'm going to give you the key to keeping these things from, kind of crapping all over themselves. First of all, I think it's a good idea to avoid intoxicants. So whether it is people who become inebriated just because somebody opened one beer and now the vodka came out of the closet, just stay away from the alcohol. If there's going to be alcohol and if it's a place that is known to have arguments, people get together and they're going to start going to blows, why do you have to go? Skype them and say, because I'm on the period and, oh, Lord, you should see how bloated I am, and your brother, he's got hemorrhoids and, Lord, he's got to sit on a donut. And so we're just going to stay here. If you have to tell a white lie, you do that to avoid problems because there is the issue with intoxication or some substance abuse. It could just be that things are very nebulous and difficult to discern, but Pisces, you guys like to check out in one way or another, and it could be as harmless as retail therapy, and it could be as detrimental as alcoholism or substance abuse. So you need to just trust me on this. Cut it out of your system, and your life will improve dramatically overnight, instantaneously, like a freaking Polaroid camera. So just stay out of that kind of mess, because on Friday, it seems like this is where we get off on the wrong foot. Now, I don't know why it seems to change so suddenly. That's what we're doing here together, is trying to figure it out, you and I, shall we? So here we've got the Sun in Sagittarius on Friday, squaring the North Node in Virgo. Virgo is at 7th house again. And having the Sun in Sagittarius is your 10th house. So this is going to be way out there. That's if it doesn't show up on some kind of cops in rural America under the freaking gaze of the rednecks and the cows, something crazy happening. No offense to the rednecks, because they all know where I live and I am used to what this looks like. So I'm just telling you that the best way might be to be conservative in your approach to how you're going to handle this weekend. It could just be that a difference of opinion arises about whose house you're actually going to be at, or where do we send the kids, or what do we do with the money, or you know what, your mother is such a crazy, and you know, all of a sudden now we've got all hell breaking loose. The North Node tells us that in your 7th house of your relationship, that committed partnership, that business arrangement, the person closest to you, which is also the house of your hidden and open enemies, for like what it's worth. You know, you can have a person right here that's fine, and then they Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And it could be somebody else who's associated with your spouse or that significant other, or maybe even one of your relatives that gets involved in something that they shouldn't. And then we have a major problem again. And look, you don't have to be near the trailers for something crazy to happen. I've seen it happen in one particular mansion in Santa Monica, and I will never forget this because that wasn't too long ago for me. And I was just like, holy shit, how do I get out of here? I don't even have a vehicle. And so it was one of those crazy things where I realized, look, and it doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you have, or who you're related to, because if somebody's going to get stupid, whether it's you, me, or Irene, it's going to happen. So in this case, Venus and Scorpio is also causing a little bit of friction here, because there is an inconjunct, a quincunx aspect to Uranus and Aries. Boom, there we go. Somebody's talking about the relatives, or the trip that didn't happen, or the relative that came but the other one didn't. Somebody starts talking smack, and there you go. Out come the batons, or something terrible happens. So keep that in mind if you're from a lovely family that is very controlled. And the most disturbing thing that could ever happen is if somebody inadvertently burped. You know, that would probably be the most outrageous thing you're used to seeing. Then you're probably pretty good. And the most that could happen is somebody absolutely says that they will not stand for this, and everybody is just like, shh, start slurping on the soup again. Just drink your soup, and we're going to pretend she didn't say that. But if you come from most families like other people are used to, it's like, damn, somebody's about to get crazy, or they break out the intoxicant, or somebody shows up inebriated, and we could have a giant problem here. On Saturday, we've got the 9 of Swords, and I know that looks a little concerning, but I think it could just be one of these really reality checks that might be about your stress levels, that you're feeling a little bit too taxed, or maybe you realize, look, you know, what are we doing buying presents for people that we never see, when I can't really manage to figure out how to afford to put stamps on 500 Christmas cards, you know, like I'm up to here. And it could be that you have one of these just very taxing moments. And this is also when we've got Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. So again, that's a very social house. And that's where I get kind of concerned. I'm wondering if you go to a company party and somebody actually decided it was a good idea to take a leak in the garden, where people usually go out and eat their lunch, and we're like, call the cops. I really don't care if that's your husband, but this just cannot happen here. My kids just saw your coworker's ass, and that's not good. And so there could be some issue there related to the groups associated with one of your jobs, whether it's you that you're single and this is your job or your foray, or this is the situation where you just go socialize with relatives you hardly ever see, and somebody commits the ultimate faux pas and, God forbid, moons somebody. And now we have to, you know, this person could end up registering as a sex offender. So there could be this combination where, for those of you who are married and partnered, it could come from the in-laws who seem well-intended, and somebody's got to, like, you know, pull the boner out and hurt somebody with it because there's a problem here. And it could be work related, but it seems to be a little bit difficult on you. So I would say chill, stay home, explosive diarrhea, anyone, and call it good. We've got Mercury going into retrograde shadow here on the 19th as well. So keep your receipts. Make sure that you keep track of your possessions. If you're shopping, make sure that before you step away from the counter, you have your cell phone, you've got your credit cards, you've got your billfold, you've got your purse, you've got your wallet on a chain, whatever it is that you do. Make sure that you've got it all and take your purchases. And then give yourself one more checkup before you step over the security thing in the boutique. Make sure that you have all of your stuff. And then, of course, not because there's any danger imminent, but because we need to be smart and safe about things that we do. When you're going to walk out to your vehicle, day or night, make sure somebody goes out with you, or that you've got your cell phone in your hand, and of course your finger on the button for your can of mace or pepper spray, and you should be okay. Sunday, we've got the Tower card. So yeah, I know this seems heavy, but it doesn't have to be. This is just telling us that there is a warning, and we are looking at these things foretold about a week in advance. And this is where you might need to really have a reality check that there is something about this weekend and something about an experience that most likely is related to something you do with your spouse or committed other, and or something you do together with the family, or a work related or social group related party. I guess I want to reiterate it again and say, if alcohol is mixed in here, we've got fuel for something to go really wrong. Maybe you're from an Italian family that might as well be a Cuban family because it all looks the same to me, and somebody gets super pissed off or tells somebody off in a way that is no punches pulled. And it's probably very true, but we all like, God, are you serious? Here we go. Everybody out the windows. And everybody's just like clearing the property because we know that something's about to get really funky here. Keep in mind also that feeling the retrograde shadow could also cause us to say things and actually say them publicly, because Mercury is in a very public place for you. That is probably more like the social faux pas than anything. But again, it could make people, pull your husband aside and say, did you know that your wife is on something? And you're like, no, she's not on drugs. That's just my wife. And you're like, oh my God, no. Vice versa could happen to anybody else in your family. The saving grace, in my opinion, is that Venus in Scorpio trines Chiron in Pisces. So in Scorpio, it seems like if you're paying attention and you adhere the admonitions and, make way to take notice of the omens, that you can smooth things over, especially if you have in-laws, or especially if people are flying in, going out, if you're going far away to see people and people's nerves are a little bit frazzled anyway because they're, worried about traveling and, all of these different things that the crazy people have now, given us to worry about, which they suck. And you know who I'm talking about is the creepy group of mentally unstable and very sick people who really blaspheme in the name of something they call religion, which is really just perversion. We don't give a shit about them, obviously. We're just trying to round them up and, throw them in a hole somewhere until we can figure out how to kind of hypnotize them or just really put them into some medically induced coma might work. But, people's nerves are kind of frazzled at about this time because everybody gets nervous about flying. And I think that when your number's up, your number's up. I'm one of those people that I don't like flying. And even after I got over some flying phobias, and I was literally hopping on planes, for a whole summer I did this and was working a stunt show and had to move around quite a lot to get this money to my mother. And I really needed a breath of fresh air. I thought to myself, I really don't know what I was worried about before. And then I found out that a friend of mine had a relative that went down on one of these Malaysian flights. And I was like, it's just not the thing I wanted to think about. And yeah, I think that when your number's up, your number's up. But, people are a little bit tense, not just because of that, the obvious concerns, but also because bags can be lost. And when they're flying during a Mercury retrograde shadow, it really depends on what their personal astrology is, but people get a little tense. And so I think you can actually, Pisces, you're good at smoothing things over when you put your mind to it and when you are actually just trying to be helpful. And something you're very good at is being hospitable and caring for others. As long as the substances aren't involved, then all we have to worry about really are the things that we say, maybe the unsolicited advice or the unsolicited opinions. Keep politics, religion, crazy people, Donald Trump off the table, and maybe you go an extra mile or you can live a day longer. And the only other thing to think about really is just keeping your eyes on the Mercury square Uranus, because that's one that could also become a little bit explosive, especially if there are some unresolved issues regarding money, finances, the things that you buy with them, and maybe the overspending that just needs to really not happen this year. And you'll see that everything will go very, very well. So I apologize that this reading ends on kind of like, a tower note, but bear in mind that these things usually can be averted. I've tried to give you every idea of every possible dysfunction that could come into play. Only you know your personal life, and whether you're like, Rita, really honestly here in this house, our family, we only have to worry about who is it that slurped their cold bisque soup. And I'd be like, gosh, that's got to be wonderful. I know that, that also can just show how many repressed emotions people have at times, but, it might be sane and safe for you. And in the same way, there sometimes are opportunities for us to say things and to express ourselves and to voice concerns in ways that are much more subdued and or in more controlled environments, preferably away from that full moon in Cancer on December 25th, which for you is going to be your solar fifth house. So it could really bring up some discussions that are tense regarding your children. This could be regarding your grandchildren. This could be tension in a romantic relationship if you're in the dating world. This could be creative differences if you have a business that you run, especially this time of year, being very sales driven, holiday sales dependent. And so there could be some differences there. That moon is going to be very sensitive. And on its own, there could be some confusion as well, because across the sky, we know we've got Mercury moves a little quicker, but then we'll still have Pluto up there. So there could be some things that really need to come out, and that's good. Most of the time, better out than in, but sometimes we need to keep that thing down, and we need to voice it to the therapist, not necessarily to the mother-in-law. God bless, and I'll be talking to you soon.